While the world slips into silence and the hum of activity fades, the truth of life begins to surface beneath the noise, revealing the nature of things as they truly are, not as we wish them to be, and in this sacred stillness, you begin to see clearly, not with your eyes, but with the lens of reason, through the eyes of the Stoics who taught that peace is not found in circumstances, but in the judgments we make about them, in how we choose to respond to the ever-changing winds of life. The Stoic path does not require noise or external validation. It requires only awareness, discipline, and the courage to see reality as it is, not as our emotions might distort it, not as fear might exaggerate it, not as desire might decorate it with illusions of comfort and ease. For the Stoics understood that comfort is a sedative and adversity is a sculptor, shaping the soul into something resilient, purposeful, and unshakable, something forged not in luxury but in the fire of life's trials. So as you sleep, let this truth sink into your being beyond the surface of your conscious mind. Let it settle like rain into dry soil, feeding the roots of your awareness so deeply that when you wake, it emerges effortlessly in your actions. For true transformation is not performance, it is practice, consistent, quiet, unglamorous practice, rooted in the understanding that what happens to you is far less important than what you become because of it. The Stoics did not preach detachment from life, but engagement with life from a place of clarity, teaching that it is not events that disturb us, but our interpretations of those events. And if you can discipline your mind to see things for what they are, to accept them without resentment, and act with reason instead of impulse, then you are free no matter your circumstances. You are powerful even in poverty, rich even in simplicity, and wise even in silence. Life will not always give you what you expect, but it will always give you what you need to evolve. And if you meet each moment as a student, you will never be defeated. You will never be lost, because you carry your compass within you, and that compass is virtue, courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom, the four pillars of Stoicism, not as distant ideals but as daily disciplines, practiced even in the mundane. Even in sleep, each breath you take is an invitation to return to the present, to recognize that the past is smoke and the future is mist, but the present is yours to shape, yours to inhabit, and yours to honor with your full attention. And though you may be drifting into rest now, your mind can remain open, absorbing the principles that have guided some of history's greatest minds, not to control the world, but to control their response to it. There is no weakness in rest, no shame in sleep, for rest is strength preserved, and sleep is the ground where tomorrow's will is cultivated. And as your body softens and your breath deepens, let your mind sharpen, becoming still like a blade laid upon the stone, not rigid but ready, not anxious but aware, learning to trust the rhythm of life without needing to grip it tightly, learning to allow what is outside your control to pass through you like wind through branches. The Stoics taught not to feel pain, for pain is a messenger, revealing what we value, where we attach, and how we cling. And through discomfort we come to understand ourselves, not as victims of fate, but as authors of our perception. And in that authorship lies liberation, for nothing can truly harm the man who chooses his reaction wisely, who maintains his character regardless of insult or injury, who does not allow the external to poison the internal. You are not your circumstances, you are not your emotions, and you are certainly not your mistakes. You are something deeper, something observing, something constant, something capable of choosing again, refining again, rising again. And that power to choose is your greatest tool, your most faithful companion, the eternal flame that no storm can extinguish. And every time you remember this, every time you return to that awareness, you become stronger, more rooted, more whole. Even now, in rest, your discipline is not on pause. It is being embedded, quietly, patiently, without resistance. And this is the beauty of Stoicism. It is not loud, it is not boastful, it does not need to be seen, it only needs to be lived. And even in silence, it thrives. Even in solitude, it grows, because the Stoic does not draw strength from applause, but from alignment with truth, with virtue, and with nature. And nature does not rush, yet everything is accomplished. So you, too, need not rush your growth, need not panic at your setbacks, for time is the medium of mastery, and consistency is the true measure of strength. not bursts of passion, not spikes of motivation, but the calm return to your values again and again, whether the world notices or not, whether success arrives or not, because virtue is its own reward, and integrity is not dependent on outcome. When you wake, the world may still be chaotic, people may still be unkind, outcomes may still be uncertain, but if you carry within you the armor of Stoic thought, you will not be moved, not because you are numb, but because you are prepared, because you have accepted that life is not meant to serve your preferences, but to serve your growth, and this realization frees you from the exhausting grip of expectation. You no longer demand that life be fair. You become fair yourself. You no longer wait for others to behave rightly. You behave rightly regardless. You no longer chase happiness in external achievements. You cultivate inner peace through inner discipline, and this is the Stoic advantage, not immunity to hardship, but immunity to despair, not avoidance of suffering, but endurance through it, not the absence of fear, but the refusal to be ruled by it. You are becoming that kind of human, even as you sleep, not through striving, but through surrender to the truth that nothing outside of you can determine your worth, the truth that your mind is your kingdom and your choices are your crown, the truth that you need nothing to be complete except the courage to align your actions with your values in every moment, especially the quiet ones, especially the ones that no one else sees. Let this wisdom become your breath, your posture, your lens, so that when difficulty arrives, you are not surprised, you are not resentful, you are not broken. You are simply ready, not because you forced yourself to be, but because you trained your mind in peace, you shaped your character in silence, and you chose discipline over distraction, awareness over avoidance, virtue over vanity. You are no longer tossed by the waves of life. You are learning to sail through them, using every gust of wind to your advantage, transforming every setback into strength, every loss into learning, and every doubt into deeper clarity. For you are not drifting asleep. You are stepping inward, where real transformation begins. There is a quiet power in accepting what is, without complaint, without resistance, without wishing it were different. And the Stoics understood that life does not bend to our will, but offers itself to us raw and unfiltered. The challenge is not to change the nature of life, but to change the way we see, the way we think, the way we carry ourselves through every moment. For the person who learns to accept reality without bitterness becomes stronger than the one who constantly demands that reality change for their comfort. When you stop expecting the world to give you peace, you begin to cultivate peace within, not a fragile peace based on things going your way, but an unshakable calm rooted in knowing that nothing outside you controls your mind unless you let it. And this is the foundation of Stoic resilience, the ability to remain steady while everything else shifts, to remain rooted while others are swayed by impulse, fear, and emotion. And it all begins with one idea, that everything that happens is neither good nor bad, but simply is, and our judgment gives it color. Our reaction gives it power. You are not here to manipulate the world into pleasing you. You are here to grow through it, to rise above petty reactions, to understand that discipline begins in thought before it shows up in action, that mastery of life is mastery of self. And when you stop resisting what you cannot control, your energy is freed to focus entirely on what you can, on your effort, your focus, your attitude, your choices, and this is where true power begins, the kind of power that does not shout or demand but moves quietly, deliberately, with intention and grace. Many suffer not because life is cruel, but because they resist what must be accepted. They fear what must be faced. They avoid what must be confronted. But avoidance does not bring peace. It brings stagnation, and the Stoic knows that peace is not avoidance, but endurance, not detachment, but clarity, the ability to walk through fire and remain aligned with reason, to speak with conviction even when unheard, to act with virtue even when unrecognized. Because the reward is not in the result but in the doing, not in what others think, but in who you become through discipline. When you realize that you do not need more to be complete, you begin to unburden yourself from the false pressures that modern life imposes, the race to accumulate, the chase to impress, the hunger for approval, and in that moment of release, you return to simplicity, to the Stoic truth that the good life is found not in excess but in alignment, not in possession but in presence, not in power over others but in power over self. And it is here that stillness becomes strength, here that silence becomes a source of wisdom, here that surrender becomes a tool for clarity. Let your breath be your anchor, your constant companion, your reminder that the only thing truly yours is your inner world, and if that world is ordered, focused, and grounded, then no matter the chaos outside, you remain unmoved, not indifferent, but stable, not cold, but composed, and in this composition lies your freedom, the freedom to live on your terms, not dictated by emotion, not governed by gossip, not ruled by external noise, but rooted in something deeper, something unshakable, something eternal. You will be challenged, criticized, misunderstood. You will experience loss, failure, disappointment, but these are not reasons to give up your principles. They are opportunities to live them, to embody them when they are hardest to hold, and this is where transformation begins. In the repetition of small, intentional choices that honor virtue even when no one is watching, that serve truth even when lies are easier, that hold fast to courage even when fear feels louder, because the Stoic way is not built in comfort but in challenge, not in theory but in practice, and it is in practice that we forge identity. Your identity is not static. It is shaped with each choice you make, each thought you entertain, each value you uphold in the face of temptation. And though the world will tell you to react, to rage, to demand, to indulge, the Stoic way is to pause, to reflect, to remember that virtue is the only true good, that what others do is not your concern, and that your purpose is not to win in the eyes of the world, but to win over yourself. And this is a lifelong path, a journey not toward perfection, but toward clarity, consistency, and quiet strength. When you stop needing to be right and start needing to be aligned, you move differently. You stop arguing to win and start listening to understand. You stop reacting to ego and start responding from principle, and your life becomes lighter, more focused, more resilient, because you no longer carry the burden of controlling the uncontrollable. You no longer waste energy trying to change what is not yours to change. You simply show up with full integrity and let the rest unfold as it must. And in that surrender, there is no weakness, only wisdom, everything you need to live a fulfilled life already lived within you, the strength to endure, the mind to reflect, the heart to persist, the will to rise, but it must be remembered, practiced, refined, not in moments of inspiration, but in moments of stillness, not when it is easy, but when it is silent, when you are alone with your thoughts, when you choose to repeat the right thing even when it brings no reward, because each repetition is a sharpening, each discipline is a deepening, and each act of presence is a return to what is real. Do not fear solitude, for it reveals you to yourself. Do not fear challenge, for it reveals your capacity. Do not fear failure, for it reveals what you must refine, and do not fear judgment, for it reveals your attachment to external things. All fear, when examined closely, becomes a doorway to growth, and the Stoic learns not to run from discomfort, but to walk straight into it with open eyes, knowing that what is painful now may be powerful later, that what tests you now may prepare you for greater responsibility, and that the fire that burns you today may forge you into something unbreakable tomorrow. Let your actions be your proof, your habits be your foundation, your thoughts be your compass. Life is short and uncertain and precious, and every moment wasted on worry or regret or ego is a moment stolen from the life you could be living, the presence you could be offering, the value you could be embodying. So simplify your needs, clarify your vision, and remember that nothing external can take from you what you do not cling to. Nothing can disturb you unless you allow it, and nothing is truly yours except your ability to choose. This is the great responsibility of the Stoic, to live deliberately, to love wisely, to act justly, and to suffer with purpose, not because suffering is glorious, but because it is inevitable, and through it we are shaped. Through it we discover the depth of our convictions, the strength of our beliefs, and the clarity of our values, and while others may drift, you remain grounded while others react. You remain responsive while others chase. You remain centered not because you are better, but because you have chosen a different path, one that honors reason over impulse, virtue over comfort, purpose over pleasure. The greatest freedom a human being can possess is not the freedom to do whatever they want, but the freedom from being controlled by what they want. The Stoics understood that desire is a chain, a silent master that quietly governs decisions, weakens discipline, clouds judgment, and enslaves the mind to the external world, to things it cannot keep, and outcomes it cannot control, and so they turned inward, not to escape life, but to understand it more clearly, to live by principle rather than passion, to think before they acted, and to align every action with a higher purpose rather than momentary gain. Desire whispers in the voice of temptation. It tells you that happiness is just one more accomplishment away, one more compliment, one more possession, one more victory, but every time you chase it, you find yourself further from peace, because you have taught yourself to believe that contentment lies somewhere in the future, somewhere outside of now, and so it remains forever out of reach, always moving, always demanding, never satisfied. The Stoics saw through this illusion and reminded us that the only true contentment comes not from getting more, but from needing less, from finding satisfaction not in circumstance, but in character. They knew that to want nothing was not to feel nothing, but to be free from the emotional tyranny of wanting things to be other than they are. They practiced this freedom not through withdrawal from life, but through full engagement with it, meeting each moment not with expectation, but with acceptance, not with resistance, but with readiness, not with complaint, but with composure. And in that discipline they discovered a peace that no wealth could buy, no fame could offer, and no power could replicate, because it was rooted in the one thing no one could take from them, their response. You may not always control what happens, but you always control what you become through what happens, and this is where strength is forged, not in the ease of life, but in the fire of difficulty, not in the approval of others, but in your own commitment to growth. And when that commitment becomes greater than your craving for comfort, you begin to rise, not in the eyes of the world, but in the depth of your own soul, where integrity cannot be faked and virtue cannot be bought, only built one disciplined thought at a time. The Stoics taught that death is not to be feared, but to be remembered daily, not to create dread, but to sharpen focus, to remind you of the urgency of living rightly, fully, consciously, because everything can be taken from you except your character, and when death arrives, it is the only thing you will carry with you, not titles, not possessions, not followers or applause, but your choices, your principles, your discipline, and your courage. So every moment you have breath is an opportunity to prepare for that final hour by living each preceding one with purpose and clarity. You were not born to serve your emotions. You were born to master them, not through repression, but through understanding, through recognizing them as messengers and not masters, signals to observe but not to obey blindly, and in this awareness you reclaim your authority, the authority to decide how you will respond, the authority to live not by instinct but by intention, not driven by chaos but guided by reason, and this authority is not given by the world. It is claimed in silence, cultivated in solitude, and affirmed in every moment you choose principle over impulse. Freedom is not found in doing what feels good. It is found in doing what is good, in resisting the path of least resistance and walking the path of greatest growth, in saying no when others say yes, in being still when the world is loud, in remaining kind when others are cruel, in staying true when it would be easier to compromise, and in trusting that the reward for such a life is not always seen by others but always felt within, for there is no greater satisfaction than knowing you did not betray yourself to fit in, to be liked, or to avoid discomfort. Pain will visit, loss will come, failure will humble, but none of these have the power to defeat you unless you give them permission, unless you allow the outer event to become an inner wound. And the Stoics trained for this. They rehearsed misfortune, practiced poverty, visualized loss, not to live in fear but to remind themselves that they could endure, that even if everything were taken from them, they would still have the power to respond with dignity, to rise with wisdom, and to act with virtue, because those are the things that define a life, not circumstances, but choices. Let your breath return you to that truth, Let every inhale remind you that you are alive, and every exhale remind you that life is fleeting, not to panic you, but to ground you, to wake you from the trance of distraction and guide you back to what matters most, to this moment, this thought, this choice, for the Stoics did not believe in wasting time, they believed in using it well, knowing that every day is a page, every action a sentence, every word a declaration of who you are, and who you are becoming. Let that becoming be shaped not by the standards of others, but by the highest standard you hold for yourself, a standard not rooted in achievement, but in alignment, not in comparison, but in consistency, not in being praised, but in being principled, and that standard is kept not when things are easy, but when they are hard, not when you are watched, but when you are alone, not when the rewards are immediate, but when the rewards are invisible, and this is the Stoic way, to live as if your life were a work of art, each act a stroke of virtue on the canvas of time.